2 days before my wedding, my mill called every vendor and tried to cancel the event, claiming I'd run off with another man. When I found out, she said, "You should thank me. I saved him from a mistake." My husband said, "She was just having a moment." So I let her have another one when she showed up and was told she wasn't on the guest list. Security escorted her out while I walked down the aisle. She missed the wedding. I didn't miss her. I found out 2 days before my wedding that my future mother-in-law had called every single one of my vendors and tried to cancel the entire event. I was sitting in my car outside a Safeway in Tacoma, shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone, listening to my florist explain, carefully, like she thought I might start screaming, that someone claiming to be you said you'd run off with another man and the wedding was off. I remember staring at the steering wheel, thinking, this can't be real. This is something that happens in those nightmare stories online, not my actual life. But then the florist told me the number the caller had used, and I recognized it immediately. His mother. Of course it was her. I felt something cold slide down my spine. She'd always acted like she tolerated me, tight smiles, comments disguised as jokes, helpful suggestions that were really corrections. But this, canceling a wedding, calling vendors and pretending to be me, telling them I had run away with another man. It was so wild that I honestly laughed at first. A weird, broken little sound that didn't match anything I was feeling. I called the venue next. Same story. Then the caterer, the DJ, the photographer. Each one told me the same thing. A woman pretending to be me had called and tried to cancel. A couple said she'd sounded drunk. One said she'd sounded gleeful. By the time I reached my fiancé, I was done shaking. I was just empty. He was at work in Federal Way. I asked him to step outside. I told him everything, word for word. I waited for him to explode or panic or at least sound horrified. Instead, he sighed and said, "Baby, she was probably just having a moment." A moment. A moment. Like she had spilled coffee on her shirt. Like she had snapped at a barista. Like she hadn't tried to sabotage our entire wedding by telling an entire chain of people that I had run away with another man. I remember asking him, "Do you understand what she actually did?" He said, "She didn't mean anything by it. She's just been stressed. Let me talk to her." I felt something crack in me. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just went quiet in a way that made him say my name twice. I told him I needed to go. And I sat in my car until my breathing stopped hurting. Later that night, when I confronted her myself, because clearly no one else was going to, she didn't deny a single thing. She actually looked me straight in the face and said, "You should thank me. I saved him from a mistake." The mistake being me. I didn't react. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't give her the scene she clearly wanted. I just looked at her and said, "Okay." That was it, just okay. Because in that moment, I realized something. If she wanted a moment so badly, if she wanted drama and consequences and attention, I was going to let her have her moment. I was going to give her one she would never forget. And 2 days later, when she arrived at the venue in a glittery silver dress meant to outshine mine, she walked up to the check-in table, and the coordinator told her she wasn't on the guest list. Security was already waiting behind her. But the reason why she wasn't on the list, and how I made it happen, that's the part no one saw coming. I met Ethan 3 years ago at a friend's barbecue in Puyallup. He was soft-spoken, easy to be around, the kind of guy who remembered small things you said and brought them up later in a way that made you feel seen. I'd been in a rough place before him, bad breakup, crappy job, living in a tiny apartment that smelled like old carpet, and he felt like this unexpected pocket of calm I didn't know I needed. His mom, Linda, wasn't part of the package at first. I'd heard she was strong-willed, which usually means control issues, but everyone's too polite to say it. I didn't think much of it. I grew up in a loud, messy family in Spokane. Strong personalities didn't scare me. The first time I met her, she looked me up and down like she was checking the price tag on a clearance item someone else had already returned. She smiled, but it was one of those smiles where the mouth moves and the eyes don't. She asked what my parents did. When I said my dad was a retired mechanic and my mom worked part-time at a clinic, she chirped, "Oh, good, humble professions." I told myself not to take it personally. I've always tried to give people grace, maybe too much grace. Over the next year, she made comments you could almost pretend weren't insults if you squinted hard enough. "That's an interesting dress. You're very independent, aren't you? "Do you ever think about finishing your degree?" And every time Ethan brushed it off. "She didn't mean it that way. She's old-fashioned. She's trying." Trying what exactly? He never said. When we got engaged last fall at Owen Beach, everything got worse. She didn't congratulate me. She congratulated him. She asked if we were rushing. She tried to pressure us into having the wedding at her country club instead of the spot I'd dreamed about since I was 16. She tried to add people to the guest list I'd never met. She offered to help with planning, but really she wanted full control. I kept telling myself, this is normal. Mothers-in-law get weird during weddings. It'll settle. But there was one moment that still sticks with me, even now. It was last December at her house in Gig Harbor. Ethan had stepped out to take a call, and she leaned close to me and said, "Sweetie, men change their minds. Don't embarrass yourself by assuming anything is permanent." I laughed awkwardly because I didn't know what else to do. But I remember the way she said it. Calm, confident, like she knew something I didn't. I told Ethan later. He said, she was probably joking. Every time she pushed a boundary, instead of addressing it, he smoothed it over. He loved his mom, and I understood that, but he treated her behavior like weather, something you just endure because you can't change it. I started to feel like I was constantly lowering myself to keep the peace. Then wedding planning got intense, and Linda got bolder, asking vendors questions behind my back, showing up uninvited to tastings, telling people she was the real planner. She even tried to guilt-trip Ethan into moving the date because June is a cheap month and it'll make the family look low class. I should have seen it coming. I really should have. But even after everything, I still didn't think she'd cross a line as big as trying to cancel the entire wedding. I didn't think she'd pretend to be me. I didn't think she'd call vendors with a story that made me look like a cheating, runaway bride. I didn't think she'd risk embarrassing her own son publicly just because she didn't like the idea of him marrying me. Turns out I underestimated her. But what she underestimated was how I respond once I finally snap. After I found out what she'd done, the next 48 hours felt like someone had cracked my life open and left all the nerves exposed. I spent the rest of that day on the phone with every vendor, confirming, one by one, that the wedding was still happening. Most of them were kind. A couple were wary, like they weren't sure if I was the unstable one. I couldn't blame them. They'd gotten a call from me saying I'd run off with another man. Every time I repeated the story, I felt this sick mix of anger and humiliation crawl up my throat. I kept picturing the vendors whispering to each other afterward. "Wow, what a mess. Poor guy. What kind of bride does that?" Even though it wasn't true, it still felt like my reputation had been dragged through mud I didn't create. Ethan came home that night acting like things were normal. He brought takeout. He asked how I was. He tried to joke. It was like he was hoping I'd forget the whole thing if he kept the vibe light. I didn't yell at him. That seemed to disappoint him more than anything. We sat at the table in silence. I finally asked him, "Did you talk to her?" He nodded. "Yeah, she's upset. She said she didn't realize it would go that far." I stared at him. "She impersonated me." "I know. She told people I ran off with another man." "I know. She tried to destroy our wedding, Ethan." He sighed like he had a headache. "She said she wasn't thinking clearly." I realized then that no matter what she did, he was going to give her an out. Every time. Automatically. Part of me wanted to scream. Another part of me went cold instead. I asked him one question. "If I had done this to your mother, called all her friends, lied to them, humiliated her, would you call that a moment?" He didn't answer. That told me everything. The next morning, things got worse. My maid of honor, Jenna, told me she'd gotten a call from Linda. She said you and Ethan were fighting, that the wedding might be off. She wanted to know if she should prepare guests for a change of plans. I actually felt dizzy. It wasn't enough for her to sabotage the vendors. She was trying to spread rumors. She wanted people to question me. She wanted to plant seeds before the wedding even happened. Then Ethan's cousin texted me, "Heard some drama." "You two okay?" Drama, because of her. That afternoon, my coordinator pulled me aside during the final walkthrough. Even she had heard something. "We just want to make sure everything is good on your end," she said gently. There were some confusing calls. I felt humiliated all over again, not because of anything I'd done, because of what she'd convinced other people I might do. That night, something inside me finally snapped clean, not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, like a door closing. I realized trying to reason with Ethan wasn't going to work. Hoping he'd stand up to her wasn't going to work. Telling her to stop wasn't going to work. So instead of trying to fix the situation, I started thinking about how to use it. If she wanted to insert herself into every detail, what would happen if I let her believe she was winning? If she wanted attention, what would happen if I guided where that attention went? If she wanted a dramatic moment, what would happen if I crafted one myself? That was the night I opened my laptop, emailed the coordinator, and asked a very simple question. How difficult would it be to update the guest list? Her reply came back quick. Easy, just send me the changes. And that's when I realized exactly how I was going to do it. How I was going to make Linda feel what it's like to have control ripped out of her hands. How I was going to make her understand, finally, unmistakably, that I wasn't someone she could push around. What I didn't know yet was that I wasn't the only one planning something. And the first big twist, it was already in motion. The first twist didn't come from Linda. It came from Ethan. The morning before the wedding, I woke up to 6 missed calls from an unknown number and 1 voicemail from my venue coordinator. Her voice was tight, careful. Hi, just calling to confirm a change to the seating chart. We got a message from your fiancé this morning with a list of additions. We can accommodate them, but we need approval from you since you're the primary contact. Call me back. I sat up in bed so fast I got lightheaded. Additions. I hadn't given anyone permission to add anything, especially not Ethan. I called her back immediately. She forwarded the list he'd sent. When I saw the first name, my stomach dropped. LINDAH*. He added her back. He added her back behind my back. He had gone around me, contacted the coordinator without telling me, and reinserted the one person who had tried to destroy our wedding 48 hours earlier. I called him. He answered sounding rushed, like he was already on his way somewhere. Hey, what's up? You added your mom back to the guest list. He paused. Yeah, I felt bad. She apologized again. She was crying. She said she didn't want to be left out on your big day. I closed my eyes. My big day. She tried to cancel my big day. She said she was overwhelmed. She didn't think, babe, she's my mom. I can't just... You went behind my back, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm, he noticed. I didn't go behind your back. I just fixed it. Fixed it. Fixed it. He had spent the last 2 days minimizing everything she did, excusing, smoothing, deflecting, and now he had taken action. Not to protect me, not to support me. Not to keep our wedding intact, to protect her, to support her, to keep her from facing even one consequence. He kept talking. I barely heard him. Something inside me was unspooling, thread by thread. Then he said the line that would change everything. She promised she'll behave. Can you just meet her halfway? Meet her halfway. Halfway between what? My sanity and her sabotage, my boundaries and her delusions, my reputation and her lies. I need to go, I said quietly. Don't make this a big deal, he said, like he wasn't the one detonating a bomb. I hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor. For a moment I felt this crushing sadness. Not anger, not fear, just a bone-deep grief that hit me so hard it made my ribs ache. He hadn't chosen me, not when it actually mattered. Then the grief faded, slowly, cleanly, leaving something sharper behind. Clarity. I realized something I should have seen weeks ago. Linda didn't act alone, she never had. She acted with the confidence of someone who knew, deep down, that her son would cover for her. She acted like a woman who knew she was untouchable. And she wasn't wrong. But that was about to change. I emailed the coordinator back. I told her to ignore every message from Ethan. I told her I would be the only one making changes. I told her the guest list she had before was the final version. Then I opened a second email. This one wasn't for the coordinator. It was for the venue's head of security. And that's when the plan shifted. I wasn't just going to block Linda. I was going to let her walk into a situation she thought she controlled, only to realize she didn't control anything at all. But before that moment arrived, there was one more twist waiting for me. One I didn't see coming. By the time the sun went down that night, the sadness I'd felt earlier had hardened into something steadier. Not rage, not spite, just a cold, clear determination that felt like flipping a switch inside myself. If Ethan wanted to pretend everything was fine, let him. If Linda wanted a moment, I'd let her have the biggest one of her life. And if everyone thought I was the quiet, forgiving one, good. It meant no one would see what was coming. I started by calling the venue again. My coordinator, bless her, had dealt with enough wedding chaos to immediately understand the tone in my voice. I need to make sure one specific guest cannot enter the ceremony or reception under any circumstance, I said. She replied without missing a beat. Name, I gave it, full legal spelling. She exhaled this tiny, knowing breath. Understood. Next was security. 2 guards had already been assigned for the guest list check-in, but I asked if one could be positioned specifically near the entrance around the time Linda was likely to arrive. Just to avoid a scene, I said. He chuckled lightly. We're used to scenes. Weddings bring out the wild in people. Not like this one, I said. Then came the harder part. I needed Ethan completely unaware. If he knew what I was doing, he'd warn her. Not because he wanted to sabotage the wedding. No, he genuinely loved me. But because he had a blind, reflexive instinct to protect his mother from consequences, even when she set herself on fire. So I played it cool. I texted him, we'll talk after the rehearsal. Let's just focus on tomorrow. He sent a relieved, smiley face like that solved anything. Meanwhile, I talked to my maid of honor, Jenna. She's blunt, fiercely loyal, and the one person who never sugar-coated Linda's behavior. When I told her what had happened with the vendor calls, she swore so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. That woman deserves to be launched into the Puget Sound, she snapped. I have something better planned, I told her. When I explained the guest list block, she grinned slowly. Oh, you're going elegant with the revenge. You're going classy savage. Not revenge, I said. A boundary, she snorted. A boundary wearing a tuxedo and 2 security badges. The plan itself was simple. Linda arrives dressed to steal attention. She walks up to the check-in table. They ask for her name. They don't find it. She insists there must be some mistake. Security steps in. She is escorted out. All while I stay calm, untouched, walking down the aisle like her chaos never existed. But simple plans have moving parts. And I knew Linda. She wouldn't go quietly. Her ego wouldn't allow it. What I didn't anticipate, what blindsided me completely, was what Ethan did later that same night. Around 11 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from him. Hey, Mom's feeling terrible. She asked if she could drop off a letter for you tomorrow. I told her she could stop by your hotel room in the morning. She just wants to apologize. My stomach dropped. She was coming to my room. On the morning of my wedding. With no warning, because he told her she could. He wasn't just enabling her. He was giving her access. And that's when something in my brain went cold and sharp. She wasn't planning to apologize. She wasn't planning to drop off a letter. She wasn't planning peace. This woman had already impersonated me, tried to cancel the entire wedding, spread rumors, and convinced her son to re-add her behind my back. Something told me she had one more move ready. Something told me she wanted to disrupt the wedding before it even began. So I adjusted my plan. If Linda wanted to show up uninvited to my room on the morning of my wedding, fine. I'd be ready. And what happened during that confrontation, the thing she revealed, the thing that made everything suddenly make sense, became the second twist. The one that changed everything. The morning of my wedding, I was already awake before dawn. I hadn't slept much, too many thoughts banging around in my head, but I wasn't tired. I felt unnervingly calm, the kind of calm you get when you've already made your decision and there's no turning back. Jenna was staying in the adjoining room, getting ready to come over once hair and makeup arrived, but around 7:15 a.m., there was a knock on my door. 3 soft taps. Polite. Practiced. I knew exactly who it was. I didn't open the door right away. I stood there, breathing slow, letting the emotional static drain out of my body. Then I unlocked it and pulled it open. Linda stood there in a powder blue dress suit like she was attending a church luncheon, not crashing the bride's room on her wedding morning. She held a white envelope in one hand and pressed the other to her chest in this fake, trembling gesture. "Oh, honey," she started. "No," I said. "Whatever this is, keep it short." Her mouth tightened, like she wasn't used to me controlling the tempo. She stepped inside without waiting for an invitation and set the envelope on the desk. "I wrote you something," she said. "I thought it might help you understand where I'm coming from." I didn't touch the letter. Then she said the line that flipped the entire world sideways. "He never told you, did he?" I stared at her. "Told me what?" She smiled, small and satisfied. "That he asked me, just a few months after you two started dating, if he was making a mistake." My heart thumped once hard. She kept going, her voice soft and dripping with false sympathy. He came to me crying, sweetheart. He said he felt trapped, like things with you were moving too fast. He said he didn't think you were the one, but he didn't know how to back out without looking like a bad guy. I felt my pulse in my fingertips. That's not true, I said quietly. She shrugged one shoulder, smug. Believe what you want. But he came to me, not you, me, and I told him to take his time, to rethink things, to make sure he wasn't settling out of fear of being alone. My stomach lurched. She watched my face the whole time, studying every flicker of emotion. That's why I did what I did this week, she said. I was trying to give him a way out he was too scared to take. A wave of nausea hit me. Not because of her words, but because of something else. A memory, last year. A fight Ethan and I had after I suggested moving in together. He'd gotten tense, defensive, distant for days. When I asked why, he snapped, I just need space, okay? My mom said rushing is how relationships crash. I remembered thinking, why is his mom weighing in on this at all? But now I wondered if that space had come from a different place. If he had actually said those things to her. If she wasn't lying, but weaponizing the truth. I forced myself to stay steady. Even if he said something in the beginning, that doesn't justify what you did, or what you tried to do. Oh, honey, she said softly, almost pitying. You still don't get it. Everything I've done is to protect him. Her eyes went sharp for a second, cold, calculating, and maybe you from a future divorce. Something shifted in my chest. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt. I was done. Bone-deep, soul-level done. And then, because one twist apparently wasn't enough, she added one more blow, almost casually. He told me last month he wasn't sure he was ready. I thought you should hear that. My breath caught. She watched me like she expected me to crumble. But instead, a strange, crystal-clear calm washed over me. Because in that moment, I realized something. Whether Ethan said all that or not, whether she was twisting the truth or inventing it, the important part was this. He let her in that deep. He gave her access to our relationship. He gave her ammunition, and she had been using it against me from day one. And suddenly, my plan didn't feel petty. It didn't feel vengeful. It felt necessary. Linda wanted me to break. But all she did was confirm something I had been avoiding. I didn't need her out of the wedding. I needed her out of my life. And if that meant burning the last bridge between us all, so be it. I looked her dead in the eyes and said, "Thank you for telling me, now get out." Her face snapped into a tight, furious line. "You're making a mistake," she hissed. "No," I said. "I'm correcting one." She left in a storm of offended gasps and muttered insults. What she didn't know was that her tantrum wasn't going to ruin my wedding. It was going to finish the job she started. And the reason behind all her behavior, the real, chilling reason that went deeper than control or jealousy, would reveal itself fully later that night. Linda's meltdown in my hotel room should have been the end of it. I thought she'd go home, stew in her bitterness, and show up at the wedding ready to force her way inside like the emotional wrecking ball she was. But the truth, the real, horrifying reason behind everything she'd done, didn't hit me until later that evening, when I finally confronted Ethan. After the rehearsal dinner, he asked if we could take a walk outside the venue. It was cooler than usual for June in Tacoma, breezy enough that my dress kept brushing against my legs. He looked tired, not stressed, tired. Like someone who hadn't slept properly in a while. "Mom told me she talked to you this morning," he said. I kept my face neutral. "She did." He rubbed his hands together, fidgety. "She said you kicked her out." "I asked her to leave," I corrected, "because she doesn't respect me or us." He let out this long breath like he was the victim. "She's having a hard time, okay? She's just overwhelmed." I stared at him. Quiet, waiting. Something in me already knew I wasn't going to like what came next. Then he said it. "She's scared of losing me." At first, I thought he meant it in the normal way. Overprotective mom, only child, blah blah. But he kept talking. "When my dad left," he said slowly, "she broke. Completely. She used to call me 5, 6, 7 times a day. She'd check my location. She'd panic if I didn't answer. For years it was like she thought I might disappear too." I frowned. "Ethan, your parents divorced 20 years ago." He nodded. "Yeah, and she never really recovered. She told me once that if I ever got married, it would feel like losing another person. She said she wouldn't survive it." Survive it, that word made my skin crawl. "What do you mean?" I asked. He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. Then he said quietly, "She told me she'd rather die than be alone." A cold, heavy weight dropped into my stomach. "That's why I've always tried to keep her calm," he said. "She needs me, and when she's scared, she does dramatic things. Dramatic things, impersonating me, calling vendors, spreading rumors, trying to cancel the wedding." I stared at him, horrified. "So you let her treat me like garbage because you were afraid she'd hurt herself?" His jaw tightened. "So instead of getting her therapy," I said slowly, "you let her make your relationships her emotional life support." He flinched. But he didn't deny it. And that's when the truth finally snapped into place, not just the truth about what she did, but why she did it. Linda wasn't just controlling, she wasn't just manipulative, she wasn't just jealous. She saw her son as a replacement for her ex-husband. She saw him as the person who owed her comfort, devotion, companionship, everything she felt she'd been robbed of. She saw me as a threat, not because I was wrong for him, but because I might take her partner away. She treated her son like an emotional spouse, and she treated me like the woman stealing him from her. It hit me so hard I felt physically cold. I whispered, "Your mother doesn't want you to get married. She wants you to belong to her." He didn't answer. That silence was the confirmation. She didn't just try to ruin the wedding. She'd been trying to break us up from the beginning. Every comment, every concern, every rumor, every boundary crossed. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was tactical, calculated, purposeful. She wanted me gone so she could keep her son exactly where she had him, small, obedient, emotionally trapped. And the sickest part? He let her. He let her because he was afraid of what she'd do if he didn't. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw it clearly for the first time. Ethan wasn't my partner. He was her hostage. And I was never going to win against someone who'd tied her survival to his existence. The dread that washed through me wasn't just about her, it was about him. About us. About the life I'd been walking into with my eyes half shut. I thought the wedding disaster was the crisis. But this was the real horror, and it changed everything about what came next. I walked into my wedding day with a strange kind of peace, not happiness, not excitement, just a steady, grounded calm. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't hoping Ethan would finally show up for me. I wasn't praying Linda would magically behave. I knew exactly who they were. I knew exactly what I needed to do. And I knew this wedding wasn't going to end the way anyone expected. When I stepped out of the bridal suite, everything was in motion. Guests taking their seats, musicians warming up, my coordinator giving instructions into a headset like a general directing troops. The air smelled like flowers and sunscreen and summer breeze off Commencement Bay. And then I saw her. Linda, glittery silver dress, hair sprayed within an inch of its life, expression tight with anticipation. She walked up to the check-in table with the confidence of someone who believed the world would always bend for her. I watched from the balcony above the entrance, hidden behind a column. I wanted to see it. I needed to see it. She gave her name. The coordinator scanned the list, tapped the iPad, raised her head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not listed as a guest for today's event." Linda blinked in slow confusion, like her brain needed a moment to confirm what her ears heard. Then came the outrage. "That's impossible," she snapped. "I'm the groom's mother." The coordinator stayed professional. "I understand, but your name isn't on the approved entry list." Linda's voice shot up an octave. "This is ridiculous." My son said, and that's when security stepped forward. 2 guards, calm, neutral, ready. "Ma'am," one said, "we're going to ask you to step aside." Her face went red, full, blotchy, furious red. "How dare you? Do you know who I am?" "I am allowed in, my son." And then she spotted me. Up on the balcony, watching, her expression twisted, shock, rage, embarrassment, all of it crashing together like a bad storm. I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. I didn't smile, either. I didn't need to. Security led her toward the parking lot while she kept shouting Ethan's name, demanding someone fix this, demanding the universe rearrange itself around her tantrum. But nothing changed. She was gone, and the silence afterward felt like a door finally closing. Then came the second part, the one no one saw coming. I didn't walk down the aisle, not to Ethan, not to that marriage, not toward a life where I'd always have to negotiate with his mother's fragility or carry the emotional weight he was too afraid to handle. While guests whispered and shifted in their seats, I asked Jenna to walk with me into a quiet room beside the ceremony space. My heart wasn't pounding. My hands weren't shaking. I felt free. I texted Ethan one sentence: "We need to talk before anything starts." He rushed in a minute later, face pale, tie crooked, panic already creeping in. "Where's my mom?" was the first thing he asked. Not "Are you okay?" Not "What's wrong?" Not "You look upset." And that told me everything. "She was removed from the guest list," I said, "by me. Because she's dangerous to my peace and she's dangerous to us." He ran a hand through his hair. "You blindsided her. You humiliated her." "She tried to destroy our wedding," I said calmly. "She's been undermining us since the beginning. And you let her?" "That's not fair." "It is fair," I said. "You didn't just choose her today. You've been choosing her for years. I just didn't see it." He opened his mouth, closed it. I could see the truth hitting him slowly, painfully. Then I said the sentence that turned his whole world upside down. "I'm not marrying you today." He froze. "What? This is cold feet. You're overwhelmed." "This is clarity," I said. "You're not ready to break away from her. And I'm done being collateral damage in your mother's emotional war." He sank into a chair, shaking his head over and over, like if he moved enough, reality would rearrange itself differently. "Please," he whispered. "Please don't do this." I wanted to feel sorry. I didn't. I felt relieved. I squeezed his hand, gently one last time. "You need therapy, she needs therapy. And you need to learn how to live without letting your mother's fear control your life. I hope you get there, but I'm not sacrificing myself while you figure it out." Then I walked out. I told the coordinator the wedding was off. She nodded with sympathy that didn't feel pitying, just kind. Guests were confused. Some were shocked. A few whispered, but no one approached me. People can sense when a decision is final. And when I stepped outside, the sun hit me warm and gold, soft, bright, clean. The first breath I took felt like oxygen I hadn't inhaled in months. Linda didn't just miss the wedding. Ethan did too. Because I refused to hand my life over to people who'd already shown me exactly how little they thought of it. As Jenna drove me home, she said, "You okay?" I leaned my head back against the seat. "Yeah," I said. "For the first time, I actually am." And that was it. No meltdown, no regret, just closure. My last thought as we pulled onto the highway was simple, sharp, and honestly kind of satisfying. If she wanted to save him from a mistake, she should have thanked me. Because I just did the job for her.